Hello and welcome to the Gold Coats and Guns podcast. This is episode 23. My name is Tom Luongo and we have a lot to talk about. It's Tuesday, March 3rd, Super Tuesday here in the U.S. And through a strange case of political harikiri, both Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg dropped out of the Super Tuesday sweepstakes in hopes of stopping Bernie Sanders being the nominee for the Democrats. So who benefits from this and what's next? We're going to discuss that and a lot more. But before I do, I want to remind you that you can follow my work over at my blog at tomluongo.me. Follow me on Twitter at TFL1728 live streams. They happen on YouTube and DLive.tv every Monday night at 8, Friday night at 8:30. Warning, I'm a bad boy with a potty mouth, and I am not afraid to use it. You can also support verified publishers like me by downloading and installing the Brave browser, where you can get paid in crypto tokens called BAT for voluntarily being served internet advertising as opposed to feeding the Google beast. Now, Brave protects your online privacy while saving you time and bandwidth by blocking all those data snoopers, etc., that are feeding the growing surveillance state. So you can use my referral code at www.brave.com/Tom405 to support the podcast directly. If you use Brave for more than 30 days, I'll get the referral fee. And lastly, you can support me on Patreon over at patreon.com/goldgoatsandguns, where you can sign up for the private market reports that are published every Wednesday and Sunday, and or the Gold Goats and Guns monthly newsletter designed to wrap up all the geopolitical chaos, the global macroeconomics, and the shifting cultural trends into a portfolio strategy designed to help you make sense of a world going mad. All right, let's get into it. It's Super Tuesday. So what is Super Tuesday? Super Tuesday is that day of the primary season where 14 states are all in the process of voting as I bloviate into this microphone. And for the most part, Super Tuesday is going to decide for us what the Democratic nomination process is going to look like. After months of fake debates, impeachment proceedings, and undue attention on terrible candidates, it all comes down to this. And on the eve of this, Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar drop out. Amazingly, they just, we're suspending our campaigns. And they cut a deal to support Joe Biden. And the reason why this is exactly what I was telling you in episode 17. So 6 weeks ago, I said the Democrats are trying to rig the system in order to get to a brokered convention and bring about Hillary Clinton. I'm going to explain again why that is and why this matters now with Super Tuesday. Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropping out of the race means that their delegates have to go to different people. Okay, whatever delegates they were going to get are either going to go to Joe Biden, who they publicly supported, or Mike Bloomberg. Now, Bloomberg isn't a serious candidate, as I've gone over many times in the past, both on my blog and here on the podcast, and on my live streams and anywhere else anybody's willing to listen to me. He's not a serious candidate. He's running a massive in-kind contribution and data collection campaign. He's not really running a campaign for president. He's 78 years old. He doesn't want to be president. He's an authoritarian and he likes telling people what to do, but he's not a serious candidate. Simply put, Mike Bloomberg is there to gather up all the data possible to help figure out how to target with a very small amount of money, because the Democrats are going to have less money than Donald Trump, to figure out how they can actually take the swing states away from Donald Trump. I don't know that they can do it. I don't think they're going to do it. And we're going to discuss why I don't think that's going to happen later in the podcast. But this is where we are. So Bloomberg's not a serious candidate. Biden has dementia. It's pretty obvious at this point that he's not all there, right? He's not at all functioning cognitively. It's not happening. When you really stop to think about it, maybe that makes him the perfect deep state candidate. Makes him the perfect candidate or to reestablish deep state control over the White House, which has been interrupted. I found it funny. Somebody mentioned it yesterday after these announcements came by that Donald Trump at 72, 73 years old is now the youngest male running for president. That's kind of scary. And it just tells you what we're really looking at. I've been banging on about this since the first day I got on the Periscope in the middle of 2016. But I was complaining then, and I mentioned then that this was all about the baby boomers and the fourth turning and Strauss and Howe and all of that stuff. And now Strauss and Howe's concept of the fourth turning and the 4-generation cycle of American politics and of American life, which is not just unique to Americans, because the same kinds of generational patterns show up in other societies, that this generational cycle is particularly powerful. The baby boomers themselves are a very, very powerful generation, incredibly large demographically. They are the profit generation of the culmination of a 300 plus year super cycle in global economic political history. I'm channeling kind of Martin Armstrong here now. So if you marry the fourth turning and Martin Armstrong, you get the confluence of this kind of hyper narcissism that exists within the baby boomer generation in general. Not all baby boomers. I know plenty of boomers who are not horrible narcissists, but the people that we're talking about who control the levers of power are. And even the ones who aren't even baby boomers, who are like, like Pelosi and the old ones that are actually, like late silent generation. They are also just so used to and so inculcated in the type of power structure that has existed in the post-World War II economic and political order that they don't want to see any real change. And this is the way they think the world should run, either because it benefits them or they don't know of any other way, and change is just scary. And when you're 82 years old and your brain is cooked and you're Nancy Pelosi, you just don't want to lose. It has nothing to do with anything else. So to me, the way this primary season is laying out, it's like it's the revenge of the baby boomers coming to you to a drive-in theater near you on Friday, or in this case, on Tuesday. And it's a very weird thing. And they refuse to give up power. And you can see in all the machinations here that are going on, all of these old, late 70s, early 80s boomers are just obsessed with holding on to power, with holding on to their image of their neoliberal image of the world and what they're going to do to remake it. If that's me being generous, the reality is that most of them are just rapacious bastards who just want theirs and don't want to give anything up. Certainly that's the case when it comes to Mike Bloomberg. And in the case of Hillary Clinton, she's had a lifelong mission to become the first female president. She doesn't give a damn how she gets there. She doesn't care how many people have to die. She doesn't care how many people she has to step on. This is what she wants. And she's more than happy to put Joe Biden up there on the top of the ticket and have a full-blown financial and public health crisis sweep Biden in office by mistake, and then quietly has a heart attack or dies in his sleep, and she becomes the first female president, and then we can have the coronation of Hillary, and she can feel all good about herself. It's disgusting. It's rapacious. It's insane, and it's so very Hillary. But the generational shift that's coming behind these baby boomers are scaring them to death, at least the ones that are in power, scaring them to death. Because my generation, Gen X, doesn't give a damn about any of this stuff. We see the costs of all of this. We see the destruction of our political system and our culture and our local communities and all of it, and the costs and the millions, hundreds of millions of brown people around the world that have been bombed into submission because of their mission to change the world. And we don't want it. And the millennials are not interested in it either. They're like, dudes, if you want to leave, leave. If you want to live your life your way, live your life your way. Like it's not coming. And they know it's ending, and they won't give up power. And so what you're watching here are the death throes of an entire generational ethos that is, frankly, both dangerous and pathetic all at the same time. So look at what they've been trying to do. The generational shift scares them to death. And look at what they've tried to do this primary season. Young version of classic boomer archetypes have failed in the primaries. Cory Booker, the young Obama. Kamala Harris, the young Hillary. The young black Hillary. Buttigieg, the gay Obama. Warren is the only real progressive or real Democrat left in the race. And she used to be a Republican, along with Bloomberg. So she's only still in the race to scoop up delegates to the insured brokered convention, because whatever she's going to get, she already knows what she's going to get. And that's why she's not gone. Because Warren, being a hardcore progressive, wasn't going to dropping out of the race, wasn't going to throw votes towards Biden or Bloomberg. And I didn't even buy that Warren is a real progressive. She used to be a Republican, for Christ's sake. You go back 10 years and listen to Elizabeth Warren, and she sounds rational. Her job has been to push, and I've been saying that, and I've said this before, her job in this primary has been to push Bernie farther and farther and farther left to make him less and less and less electable. So that when we get down to the brokered convention, everybody can go, oh, look, Bernie, that's nice. We gave you the gold watch the last time, dude, but no way. You're just not electable. Here are the polling numbers. We have the data. And Mike then strolls in with his $1 billion worth of advertising data and says, oh, look, by the way, you're never going to beat Trump. We have to run Hillary. This is the best ticket for us. And Bernie, being Bernie, will step aside. I'm telling you, he will. He's already signaled in every way, manner, shape, or form that he's not going to fight these people. By giving credence to the Russiagate nonsense, I don't give short odds at all that Bernie Sanders is going to bolt third party and do the right thing and try and take down these corrupt people. He doesn't care. I'm sorry, but this is all about Bernie. It's not about the people. He's good at talking the game. Tulsi Gabbard. That's the real person of principle. And that's why she's not at the table here. And that's why she's not in this conversation. All right. Mike Shedlock's been doing really interesting work on this. I hadn't really been following Mike for the last couple of weeks. I've been busy looking at geopolitics and trying to figure out what, the Sultan in Turkey is trying to do to start World War III. So I popped over to Mike's site this morning, and lo and behold, as always, Mike's always got a wealth of very interesting information over at his site at mishtalk.com. And Mike's got some really interesting numbers based on the current polling, salt the current polling to taste, about what the delegate count's going to look like after the Super Tuesday. And now with Klobuchar and Buttigieg out of the picture, her 45 delegates mostly push towards Biden. And they don't even technically push towards Bloomberg, at least according to him. So I don't know. We'll see what happens here. Sanders is only looking at picking up around 500 delegates. Biden's going to pick up almost 500 delegates. Warren will pick up 200 or so. Bloomberg will pick up 150. And the moderates will pick up around 6 delegates for every 7 that Sanders and Warren pick up. But I don't believe that Elizabeth Warren is a real progressive. I think she's a fake progressive who's running an insurgency campaign in order to make Sanders unelectable. And at the end of the day, she'll betray him and all progressives as well. I mean, there was a hashtag running around last night, Warren support Bernie, hashtag Warren support Bernie. And it was not going to happen. This is how naive so many of the people who are supporting Bernie Sanders truly are. They don't know what they're up against. They really don't. If they think that Elizabeth Warren is in any way, manner, shape, or form a real person. She's a completely constructed, artificial personality. She might as well be a replicant straight out of a Philip K. Dick novel at this point. Every time I watch American politics, there's a minor Philip K. Dick novel called We Can Build You, where there's all of these robots of historical figures have been programmed to be the teachers in the schools. And, and the whole novel's centered around the melancholy projections of an Abe Lincoln simulacrum. But truthfully, every time I look at American politics anymore, all I can see is, a bunch of simulacra running around, and they're not real people. I just wonder how many of them are just completely and utterly constructed personalities because they're not real people. Elizabeth Warren trying to drink a beer on Periscope. Shudder. All right. So ultimately, as I said previously, and I said in previous podcasts, this is all about Hillary. And so the push is on now. It's all in front of you. Nate Silver, the DNC high priest of bad math, now says odds of a brokered convention are like 3-1. 75% brokered convention. No, really? Nate? We couldn't figure that out. We needed all of your bad statistics to tell us this. Are you kidding me? Come on. I've got no use for Nate Silver because he's not a real statistician, because real statisticians know that they don't use bad numbers. They don't use numbers that don't work. And you don't use numbers based on the past when you know that the conditions under which the new numbers are being generated don't comport with the same boundary conditions of the numbers that you picked up in the past. They're not there. And even if you're 90% accurate, with close elections, 90% accuracy is 0% accuracy for all intents and purposes. It's 90% accuracy is still 0 precision, as it were, because you can absolutely get the wrong answer. You can be 90% accurate and still get the wrong answer and be 100% imprecise. Never forget that. 90% precise and be 100% inaccurate. Actually, that's the right way of looking at it. Accuracy is getting the right number. Precision is how close you were to the original target. All right. Yes, in the past, I used to actually do all this stuff. I know a fair amount about statistics. I used to be a research chemist and research scientist. I used to do my own statistical stuff. It's a little cloudy back there. I haven't done it in a long time, but it's still there. More than that, an analytic chemist. Let's never forget that Pete Buttigieg is absolutely a constructed personality. If anything, most likely a CIA plant designed from the ground up to be the young gay Obama to try and attract moderate votes and eventually give them over to Joe Biden or whomever it was acceptable to the deep state. He was never a serious candidate. Same with Amy Klobuchar. Both of them at best are always running for VP. Dick Morris noted last week that he saw the hand of the Clintons everywhere. And if anybody knows what the hand of the Clintons looks like, it's that guy who, kind of ran the Clintons' campaigns and was their chief political strategist for a long time. I told you this was coming months ago. The fact that Dick Morris is only just mentioning it now is kind of rich, actually. I don't mean to bust my hand, pat myself in the back or anything, but when you make a call like this, you got to run with it for as long as possible. Even if Hillary doesn't wind up being the nominee, just letting everybody know that the cat's out of the bag and letting that idea percolate through social media and the Twitter sphere and the commentariat, right? The punditocracy. That's a good thing. because, again, you wake people up and you teach them how to look at the way the headlines are constructed, and then they get better at it. Their lies don't last as long. And that's ultimately what this is all about. So here we are. Hillary's going to start a podcast. I'm sure it'll be terrible because it'll all be about Hillary. It won't actually be about the issues. It'll be about how does this particular issue benefit me. You remember something else here. I've still not actually seen Hillary stand up or walk around in at least the last year. Every time we see her photograph, she is sitting down. So I have to wonder if she's starting a podcast because she actually can't physically campaign and that she's going to be like freaking FDR. And how does she run for president without standing up? Is her podcast going to be her version of the fireside chat because she can't actually campaign? And is she going to be the FDR-like figure that leads us through the terrible financial crisis? You can see this all running through Hillary's head here. We have a financial crisis on the horizon. The Fed just cut rates and all this stuff is happening. You can just see this like going through her head, and she can sit down on her podcast and she can reassure the nation as an FDR-like figure that we're going to lead you out of this terrible, horrible depression that the evil Donald Trump and the Republicans engineered, and I'm going to lead you to the promised land into a new, better version of America, and I'm the one who's actually going to make America great again. You can just see this. You can see her writing this down in her freaking diary every day. It's so pathetic. Hillary doesn't need to run for president. She needs therapy to re-up about Super Tuesday. And we'll see how everything shakes out in a couple hours. I'm recording this right after about noon on Super Tuesday. Buttigieg and Klobuchar were only here and to get support and then hand it to either Bloomberg or Biden and shore up their support later on. And it's not even just about choosing Biden at this point. It's not about Biden. It's about ensuring that Bernie Sanders is not the nominee. And I love the fact that Trump's been out there tweeting about this. I think that's freaking hilarious. I think it's outstanding that he's been doing this and it's the right thing for him to do. At the end of the day, Donald Trump would rather run against either Bloomberg or Biden than Bernie Sanders. So him appealing to the Bernie bros about how they're going to get screwed by this because he knows they're going to get screwed. He's already prepping the stage to bring them into his big tent after the convention during the campaigns. They don't stay at home. They led you to the edge of the promised land twice now, and they betrayed you both times. I've actually got the answers for you. Come with me. Let's make America great again. I can see him. I know what his strategy is, and it's very obvious. Never underestimate Donald Trump's political instincts. Everybody who ever has lost. And I refuse to do it. I don't always agree with him and his political instincts and the long-term outcome for a lot of the things that he does. So certainly in terms of foreign policy, where I think he's made a hash of just about everything. But in terms of domestic policy and playing domestic politics, no, the guy's brilliant. He's idiot savant level good. All right. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before I leave is how this impacts what's actually happening today. We have Super Tuesday, and on Super Tuesday, the Fed just came out and lowered interest rates of 50 basis following the bond market. We have an emergency rate cut by the Fed to cut rates 50 basis points because they had to. I mean, they were trying to hold 1.55% as the benchmark rate, and the 10 years trading at 1%. They had to cut rates by 50 basis points. They had no other option. The market was screaming at them to do it. Now, the official reason is because of the global economic slowdown that is now in place because of our response to the coronavirus. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still very skeptical about the whole situation surrounding coronavirus. I've heard every theory imaginable, from the most crazy and arcane to the most, cynical, and about basic incompetence. And the truth of the matter is that we don't know enough at this point to know whether this is worse than the flu or not. Going back to the baby boomers themselves, just a quick aside on the coronavirus, the baby boomers are getting very old now. And the flu, just so you know, has been killing more people every year than it did just 10 years ago. The flu-related deaths, and again, salt all of our medical statistics, death statistics to taste, because they're really bad in terms of quality. All flu-related deaths in the United States have more than tripled in the last 10 years, from 15 to 20,000 people up to around 60,000 people a year. Now, there's two reasons for this. One is simply because, as we said before, the baby boomers are a large generation and they're getting old numerically. So same percentage could be dying from the flu. That's not the case. The flu isn't 3 times more deadly. It may be 1.5 times more deadly. But the baby boomers' huge numbers make up that difference. Now, moreover, after 2.5 generations of really bad, or almost 3 generations of really bad diet, advice coming directly from the government and public policy in support of that. Farm subsidies, this, that, and everything else. We have very bad diet having immunocompromised 2 entire generations. So I'm not surprised that the flu is becoming more deadly because people are becoming deadlier because people are sicker. 1,000 people a day die of diabetes in the United States, some number like that. I'm not sure that number is correct, but it's some incredibly large number of a diabetes-related illness every day. And we're worried now about 2 people dead from coronavirus. I think we have our anxiety a little misattenuated here. The coronavirus is one of those things that it's played up to be a kind of existential threat. It's the boogeyman. It's the monster that we don't understand. Like the flu isn't a monster we understand. How about type 2 diabetes and the complications thereof? It's not a monster we understand. It's a monster that Big Pharma doesn't want to go away because they make billions of dollars a year on it, just treating people's lifestyle while they manage them into an early grave. Regardless of that, that's where we are. And I want everybody to remember that when you respond to how this is playing out in coronavirus land. But the Fed's cutting interest rates by 50 basis points, but they're not doing it for the coronavirus. They may be part of it. They're doing it because we've got deteriorating foreign dollar confidence around the world and an increasing demand for dollars at the same time because of the net short position that exists out there and the fact that with a slowing global economy and coronavirus disrupting normal everyday business all around the world, people are hoarding dollars, and now dollar hoarding is continuing. And even though the U.S. dollar index has fallen sharply over the last few days, it's not a structural thing unless Bernie Sanders becomes the nominee. Now, I'm channeling a little Martin Armstrong here, and I do believe that Martin is overstating his case when he says that the Bernie effect is actually what's driving weakness in the markets here. I don't think that's completely correct. I think that's part of the reason, but I don't think it's the only reason. I think that's way overstating the case simply to highlight the fact that they're overblowing coronavirus. Like, no, it's real. The Chinese put hundreds of millions of people under lockdown and didn't send them to work for a month. That's going to have a bad effect on global GDP for a couple of quarters, around that. And in a market that is levered and over-levered to the upside, very easy for that market to puke 25% or so over the course of 4 or 5 days once margin selling gets involved. So, but Bernie Sanders will drive capital, as president, will drive capital away from the United States. If there's one thing that will take me off of my strong dollar bias over the course of the next 18 months to 2 years, it is a Sanders win in November, because capital will flee out of the United States. Because in the game of global capital, you don't have to be good. You just have to be better than everybody else. And Sanders becoming president will ensure that the United States treats capital about as bad as it's possible to treat capital. Everything he's talking about will treat capital badly. His is the politics of revenge and envy, not of rebuilding. And you can argue with me all you want about this, but that's just reality. And that's what Marxism ultimately is about. It's about revenge and unquenchable envy, because you don't believe in anything. You only believe in power. You don't believe in a higher order. You don't believe in community. You believe that community only exists at the force of a gun, and that government can create whatever community you want and force the bad people to take back all the money that the bad people stole in the first place. It doesn't work. Some problems are too big to fix that way. We have a bearish bid on the U.S. dollar right now. The Fed has reacted with a strong move to cut rates. The ECB has not moved at all. So that makes perfect sense that we'd have and they want the euro short up here because they don't want the euro to collapse. I caution progressives about wanting Bernie Sanders to become president, because H.L. Mencken once said that, democracy is about giving the people exactly what they want, and then the government gives it to them good and hard. Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And then when you get it, you may not be happy with what you got. Because don't ever forget that at the end of the day, rate cuts aren't bullish under these circumstances. They're bearish. Real traders understand that there's fear and they get out. So the stock market did not rise with the Fed's emergency rate cut announcement. It's wondering what to do. Trump wants even lower rates. That's not going to solve the problem. Politics of the United States are deteriorating daily. And again, Trump is really good at navigating domestic politics, and it's going to keep him focused domestically. So no time for Europe. Trump's really not monitoring what's happening in Syria with the Sultan, Erdogan, and all that. And to sum up, I really do think that no matter what happens here, with these moves by Buttigieg and Klobuchar, ultimately it's telling you that the Democrats are headed for a split no matter what happens here. If they nominate Bernie, they're going to split. The progressives will take control of the party. They'll kick out the DNC. They'll take over the DNC. It'll be a mess. If they steal the nomination from Bernie, the progressives will feel cheated again, and the party will split as well. There's no hope for the Democrats on this. Their coalition was untenable in the first place, and it was only an agglomeration of people abreacting against quote-unquote evil Republicans. Republicans turn out to be not completely evil, which they're not, and the problems get really big, and no one has any solutions. Then the infighting starts. It turns into a Shark Tank, and we have the modern Democratic Party and the current political primary kabuki theater. They need a unity candidate, and they don't have one. They've been searching for one. They've been living on borrowed time. Obama was a great unity candidate. I don't like Obama. I think he's a terrible person. Good unity candidate. They don't have a figure like that. Hillary is absolutely not that figure. She's the exact opposite of that. She's purely in it for herself. The news this week, by the way, of the Judicial Watch lawsuit that will force her to actually give deposition about her email servers. That's going to be interesting, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think it's going to keep her from becoming the nominee. That is what winds up happening. It's going to be a brokered convention, no matter what happens here. And again, the last thing to say is that if we wind up with a brokered convention after today's Super Tuesday, if Super Tuesday winds up being indecisive, which according to Mike Shutterlock is the most likely outcome, then that's bullish for the markets and it's bullish for Trump, because a brokered convention means Sanders is not going to be the nominee. Markets and investors will look kindly on that because they like Trump. Got news for you, progressives here in the United States. Lost your mind? Got news for you. Trump is really well liked around the world. If you don't believe me, go review the tape of him addressing stadiums full of people in India. Sometimes denying reality, and this whole podcast can be summed up in that respect. Denying reality isn't a valid business model, and it's not going to get you what you want. All right, this has been the Gold, Goats, and Guns podcast for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020. If you like what you heard today, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, iTunes, whatever. They're all available for you. There'll be links to all of that in the show notes. I'll give you links to Mike's articles over at Mishtalk, which I think are excellent as well. And we'll be back next Tuesday, hopefully with a guest. We'll see. I've been really, really busy and haven't been able to actually sit down and chat with anybody. So we'll see what happens. So if not, and then I'll rant into a microphone for another 25 minutes and you'll just have to listen to my dulcet tones. All right, you guys take care. You have a great week. You be well. We'll talk soon. Keep your stick on the ice.